Boom, boom. What's good? What's good? What's good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Y'all know what time it is. It's Tuesday night. It's 9 p.m. And you already know it's time for the Black and the Bold to get together. Come around the fire. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Listen, this is the greatest podcast on your social media page at this very moment. Listen, tonight you know you're gonna hear some thought-provoking, some gut-wrenching, and yes, some tear-jerking content because it just gets better as we go. But we got a lot to talk about. Short time to get there. Listen here. I'm the Bold. We're going to start it off right. What's going on with you, Brother Black? How you doing this evening?
Good evening, sir. Brother Mac.
Yes, sir.
Brother
yes,
Bold,
sir.
as they say.
Oh, well, we do. Yeah.
All right. Well, good evening to the audience out there as well as they chime in. I see the numbers rolling in. So definitely before we get started, go ahead and drop us a line in the chat, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube joining us. We are streaming on both of those platforms under the Black and the Bold. But as I said, as it's passed over to me, I am the Black, Dwayne Johnson, coming out of Valdosta, Georgia tonight, and Lowndes County, that is, and as well also representing Georgia Tech, and also by way of DC and some other areas that I hailed from on my journey to where I sit now. So anyway, but basically, basically trying to hold down the family here and making sure that we are representing not only family, but business, Black topics as well tonight. And so we're going to get into one that's, kind of been out there over several years as far as the topic. You saw the headline, the moniker, what it really means to be woke. This is one area that I think tonight, bro, we might definitely be able to get some feedback from the audience on this, because this is a term that has always been thrown around to some degree, whether it's been watered down or not. But as I pass it over to you, I want to ask those that have joined as well, what is your idea of being woke? What is woke? What does it mean to you? Go ahead and drop that down in the chat as we get ready from our intro here. But brother, that's it. Other than track, that's really the big thing going on now. And obviously business going very well as of this evening, getting into the latter part of the month as usual. Is just kind of making sure that all our owners are well pleased or whatnot with their revenue and cash flow. The other thing is that we just came out of tax season. So for those that, like myself, procrastinated, uh, but still, as I said before, sometimes I work better under pressure, and I just got it done. So anyway, for those that are listening, we're ready to transition, bro. So go ahead with your introduction, please.
Well, I mean, y'all already know what time it is, man. I was just posting on the live there on Facebook. Listen, man, I'm the bold Edward Mack, of course, Valdosta, Georgia, Lowndes High grad, UCF alum, and now, just, I mean, what do I have now? Oh, also alum of what did I go to? Did I give Ashford? There we go. All right.
It didn't really
um,
mean anything,
yeah, I mean, just try to remember, just how valuable they are. But anyway,
all right?
uh, yeah, but yeah, I mean, that got things are going well. Life is funny. A lot of times you have experiences in life that really make you check your real existence. I had a grounding moment this past weekend, and it really caused me to really look within, to really ask myself, am I what I say I am? So yeah, what, just have one of those awakening moments, and it was I learned a lot, but I'm also still growing, and I had a reminder that I've made a lot of progress, but I still have a ways to go. So I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm positive. I'm optimistic. Things are looking well. Children are doing well. Plans are going well. So no complaints on my end, man. Just ready for it all come together so we can experience it all. But I'm good, bro.
We're good. We're good.
Yeah,
Although periods of enlightenment, I mean, just to kind of go on there a little bit. I mean, my wife and I, we went through that period as well, primarily during our transition here. Whether at that point it was termed as woke, but just some of that enlightenment period, I think, is important for people to really just be able to be in a space to where they can reflect on what really matters. And like you said
yeah,
perfectly, are you really walking in what you claim to represent?
right.
And that's an area that I appreciate, that we're able to do right now, and that we hope others, are able to do as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Life is funny. Life is really funny, but I don't take it for granted for anything. So yeah, man. Day by day, day by day. But yeah, man, let's see what we got. Let's see, we got some folks on. I've got some folks on this live on this end. Let's see what we got here. See what we got. There's a lot going on. See, I got a few people already chiming in on my end.
Oh yeah, okay.
What about your end? What you got over there? What you got on the main page? What we got going on, my brother?
Well, I think you got it.
I got it.
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
I'm seeing most of the traffic is on your end.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody that's on with us tonight. So grateful for you all. Listen, we got a good one. We had well, I had an experience, which is what really brought about this conversation. So
Okay.
I want to encourage everybody that's on. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the share button. Come on, subscribe. Come on, help us get our numbers up so we can go ahead and get some partnerships and really soar. But I was scrolling through my social media earlier through Instagram, and I came across this particular post. And when I came across the post, it really, really shocked me in what I saw. And because it was just, it's a mainstream thing, but at the same time, whatever is going on seems like the mainstream is trying to shift the narrative. So I saw something, and I want you all to take a look and let me know what you all think about this post. I'm not going to play the audio, but I am going to definitely share with you all at least the photo that I saw. So I'll share this with you all here. This is the photo. Let's see. Can you all see that? Yeah, this is the photo. This is the Instagram post that I saw. Um, and basically, it was on Fox News, and they were sharing that Apple has a new update and some type of new app, which includes what they're calling woke, in which they're trying to attach it to the word woke, the woke app. And when I saw it, it immediately arrested my attention because, first of all, I've never seen the word or heard the word used in this context. And so it was a very new spin on the actual on the actual term, and it really got me thinking, bro. And so that's why I immediately shared it with you, and it's beautiful. And shout out to Suzette for she's not able to be here with us tonight, man. She had another engagement, but shout out to our beautiful co-host. Let her know we're thinking about her. She's in our prayers. Nothing's wrong. She just had another engagement and wasn't able to make it. But that's why I shared it with you all, and because I immediately wanted to get y'all's attention to see if I wasn't tripping. I found out, bro, that having accountability partners is golden, and having people who can really keep you grounded is a foundation that I think everybody should have. And so when I sent it over, I was like, yeah, I gotta let y'all view this, because am I tripping? And so because bro, we've never ever heard the word woke used pointing in this direction. And so it kind of, it really, really shocked me to hear it. So, I mean, what were your initial thoughts? Your initial thoughts when you saw it?
Do I have that correct? That, again, I was expecting like some big reveal, from Apple or something, and in Fox News there. But
yeah,
is it really? And I say simply from the outside looking in, and then I know there's an inside to this that I get into that's much deeper. But is it really putting a baby awake, that's going to pop up when you put the word woke in as an icon or an emoji? What is that?
I just think they added that to the selection of the emojis that you can choose from. So they're adding, and yes, exactly. They're flying under the banner of it being woke. But I believe they set it up that way for shock value, simply because of how we're going to define it shortly. Because when you first see it, it automatically pulls on your emotions, and also it pulls on your values at the same time, because we know what woke is, and we know what we've attested to woke for the last 60 years.
Right. Exactly. That's the deep part of it.
Right.
That so we know at least our culture understands what the word or term woke identifies with.
Right.
And so, do you have it to put it back up?
Yeah, I can put it back up for you.
Okay, as I'm just talking and to give you some time there. But so help me explain again. So what part of this is woke?
Well, again, that's the issue that I have with it.
Yeah.
The part about it that's woke really goes into the definition. It really ties into the definition that we talked about, by it being politically driven. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and see if I can pull that up. But I'll keep.
Okay, I see it. That's fine. I got it, because I was trying to read the textual content that the post person made, that
right,
or the author, if you will.
Right.
So they literally, and so it kind of is what I was saying before. They literally took the word woke and identified an emoji character with that word, and it is to be represented by a baby in swaddle that's sitting up and is awake.
Yes, and the thing about it is that it's attached. They use that particular emoji to represent a greater group of new apps that are all going to fly under the banner of woke.
Right.
So to me, it's like they knew that the man in that situation would pull on that shock value, but also it would speak volumes to a certain demographic. Kind of giving them their place, or kind of solidify, and that's cool. But I just think it's extremely dangerous when you're trying to shift the narrative of a term that's already been established. Now you're trying to tell us, okay, that's no longer woke, and now you're trying to back it, with multi-billion-dollar corporations, because they got the money to push this to the eons, what I mean? So it's like, this is a new wave that I think the Black community is going to have. This is another something that we're going to have to try to defend or overcome, as we continue to try to repair our entire existence. I don't know, but I mean, we got a lot to talk about. But what you think?
No, I mean, I was just in addition to that, because I mean, that's spot on. my additional take on it to add to that is that it's another tactic as typical is that it seems harmless, but because it shifts the terminology and effectiveness of the word,
Yes,
then it waters down the cultural attachment that the word has.
correct,
Okay.
correct, correct. And that's why I was saying that's the danger.
Yes.
That's the danger of it all to me. Um, that's not what I'm looking for. That's the danger of it all to me because you have somebody who has, you has well not somebody, but you have this organism that has such financial backing where they can make leaps and bounds, pushing their narrative almost without your permission or almost even without you being aware of it. It's like anytime this stuff happens, it just falls in your lap. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
like, oh, this is what's happening. It's
Right.
because of financial prowess that these people have to push this narrative and almost try to speak for a lot of people when in fact you're only screaming, you're only hearing the voices of a few. You know what I'm saying? So it's dangerous because this isn't the first time shifting a narrative of something has happened,
Right.
and every time that our narrative gets shifted, it seems like we almost lose momentum.
Yeah. Exactly. That's it right there.
Yeah.
And what I would like you to do, because you shared this in our text group chat, um, pull up or read off for us the definition of woke, and I think that will give some good contextual background for those that are listening that maybe or should identify what woke really is, and here's really the theoretical meaning of it. But even if we have people that are listening that are new to this type of identification as woke, this would provide a backdrop for it.
Oh, okay, let me pull that up. That's the one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. That one.
because
Give me.
it brings gravity to what we're saying here and what you just said, because it has a lot of meaning to us um,
Yeah.
culturally.
Okay. Well, I got this definition out of off of UrbanDictionary.com, so anybody can go look it up. And it's woke, WOKE, and it says today there's a new definition of woke in quotes. You might have woke your dog up when you opened that bag of chips, but he's not woke as it applies to be woke means you're now informed of things. You are now informed of things you did not know. You are not in the dark about other societies and cultures whose past has been edited and censored to make you think it wasn't as bad as it actually is. So that's the
Yeah,
main definition of what woke means. Basically, to denote that a person has a desire to research his positions on most issues before espousing on most issues. Excuse me, before espousing ideas that are accepted. I'll read that again. A woke person could also be described as a person uh, that has a desire to reach his positions on most issues before espousing ideas that are already accepted. So that is the definition of what woke means. That's woke. Now, if we look at this posting, if we look at what we, this um, IG post, it's a political stunt. It's a political move, if you ask me. I think it's highly, I think it's probably, I think it's 93 octane political movement or move to me because it's almost a sword that cuts both ways. It's going to be alarming to some on one end and force them to become to research and to understand what's going on. So it's almost like it's going to pull you in if you're paying attention. It'll pull you in to see the deeper meaning of what they're trying to say. That it is a political move, and that we are supporting you and giving you these extra amenities or whatever. But on the other end, it could also cause a divide. You know what I'm saying, between those that are going to espouse to your new version of woke and those that are going to say no, 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 that ain't woke to us. And I think that's probably going to be what's highlighted the most is the fact that you're trying to change the definitions of narratives. It's just like marriage. Like,
Yeah.
you know, 20, 30 years ago, we all knew, or we all had a homogenous idea of what marriage was. Of course, we knew that there were going to be outliers. I had a conversation last night with Sister Beautiful, and I was telling her that a lot of times we derail conversations because we don't treat them like statistics. Everything has outliers.
Right.
On both sides. So the what ifs and what abouts aren't really valuable to move, to move the conversation forward. And I think the what about ifs and the small bickering about the woke definition, I think is what's going to derail, our stance on it. But I think it's also going to give them momentum because it's going to give that group of people something else to rob from us and then put it out to mainstream.
Right.
And then you see woke t-shirts and woke this and woke that. And then the version of woke would then become you'll start looking as the bad person because you know the original version.
Exactly, right. So that's essentially what has happened. And I know I'm probably jumping 3-4 questions down that you mentioned during our chat, but I'm not going to ask the question. But I do want to make the point that that's essentially what you described is happening with our Black identifying initiatives. So it being Black for us had relevancy over the past, we're in 2022 now, but I mean, if you even took the past century, being 1921, 22, since really past that, I mean, that's like the Reconstruction era and the Harlem Renaissance and Tulsa before the massacre, then the revitalization of rock and roll and blues, R&B, then fast forwarding into James Brown, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, et cetera, et cetera. But there was unapologetic identification with being, as James would say, I'm Black and I'm proud. Now there's a hesitancy, I'll say, with being Black and proud. And now we're evolving past a lot of that because for some time we had some divisive conversations about hair, right? There was, the perm and all that. Now a lot of people have shifted to natural. All right. The other thing was, being supportive of Black business. There's a lot of shift that happened since George Floyd, especially. There is a Google graphic that I'll need to bring up at some point, but there's a Google graphic that shows how much Black business spiked. And I have it here. Hold on just a second as I bring it up.
All right.
Just to bring my point into play here. But Black business spiked, if you all can see that. I had that just saved for a conversation like this. But that spike right there in that graphic, this is a Google trend of Black-owned business as a search term. That spike is in the summer of 2020 when George Floyd was murdered. All right. But you can see as you come now to the right towards, the present day, that term has fallen. All right. And so we've kind of normalized back to Black is popular. Excuse me, Black is popular, but is it really the mainstream of our activities? And can it be? That's a different conversation, practicality. But what I'm saying though is that there is a normalization that happens when everybody understands, in this case, what woke is, but after a while, it normalizes back down to a selective few people that really identify with it. And if you're not careful, as what we just saw, mainstream will take on the other 80% of pushing out a narrative of what they want it to mean. And so the
Right.
same thing with the supporting of Black business or Black culture. Once it's commercialized, that's that 80%. In the case of woke, once it's commercialized, be careful, because if we're not holding on to the primary way that we identify with woke, being pro-Black, then it's going to get turned around to where that selective 20%, 10%, as you just said, Bo, is that are you going to be the minority and the ones that are looked at sideways because you're calling yourself woke, because you really know what that means?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you with what you're saying, and I totally understand that. Um, it's become a part of our existence. It's almost like a cycle
Yeah,
that we always see. There's always going to be hands that are going to be greased by the situation. There's always going to be people trying to make that dollar, but at the same time, there are going to be some people that are so insensitive to the real basis of the argument of why we should be culture specific, why we should be culture first, why we should be that way. You're always going to have that group that are going to consistently break down the foundational things that we need to keep us pushing and keep us going. And so it makes us weak. It makes us vulnerable to allow our narrative to be shifted or played with or knocked off its square to the point where we start looking at it different. It's like,
yeah, yeah,
and we look at the word Uncle Tom. What I'm saying? For a long time, the Uncle Tom was, of course, a very negative stigma. But now there's some people that would rather be an Uncle Tom because you're looking out for the benefit of the group, or you have a responsibility, or whatever it might be. And so we keep on shifting it. I can go on with different titles, and that we've kind of always taken in and say, that doesn't mean to me what that means to you, even though there's a definition right there that says this is the definition. We still like to do that. And I just think it comes out, I really think it's really steeped in manipulation and trickery. Um, and there's never any good out of it when you're trying to, again, with gender and all, and marriage and all that, when you're trying to go against a foundational principle and value of civilization to then try to push a narrative for the dollar. That's really what it's about.
yeah,
It's really about the dollar. And I think that particular statement will actually segue us into our first question tonight,
yeah.
um, which is, what areas should we be woke in? Should it be finances? Should it be politics? Should it be religion, education, family dynamics, self-governing, or whatever? Like, what are y'all? I mean, what areas should we as a people be woke in? Remember, we said woke was somebody who does that extra due diligence of research, prior to, coming up with your own ideas and biases. And so woke is just somebody who does the extra research, does the extra study. They read the footnotes when they read the book. And so that's the difference. So what do you think, bro? I mean, what do you think should we be woke in all these areas, or do you think there's one that should stand head and shoulders above the others?
Yeah. I mean, definitely the catch-all would be, of course, pie in the sky. We all should be, woke in all of those areas, of course, as much as we can in your capacity. There's a step down from that I would even answer, to where if we can't be a woke across the board, woke person across the board, then what areas that are passionate for you as an individual, then we all kind of fit in our lanes for that. Then the other area that I think is just like, back to your question, which is like so mandatory, especially as we get down to some of these questions that we have. It is very important that we are awake in education, because there definitely is an attack on education. And when I say that, it's more so about what we're not being exposed to, what we don't know is being taken away. So, being the person reading the footnotes, if you will, yeah, we've got to take on that practice, because specifically as a parent, I'll say, when our kids are sent home with material or have learned material, it's, I mean, I find it all the time, to where and you can find it also as well, because I know you always talk about how you ask, what's going on, what went on in school, what are y'all learning. When you have that type of conversation with your student, your child, you're going to find out that there's a very limited amount of information culturally that they are able to identify with or learning. And
Right.
so what happens is that when we learn the mainstream of, let's say, just say history, or even language arts. I mean, we have our own language arts, right? But
Right.
we don't get taught that. So,
Mhm.
but history is the easiest one to tackle here, in a sense, is that what we learn from jump is a Eurocentric history or framework of history. Of course, we would be benefited by learning how this country operates. However, as a people, one of the first things that we need to identify with and learn is ourselves. And because we don't do that, a lot of times we miss really the confidence, the assertiveness, the entitlement that we have as a people, because we're not we're not taught. We don't learn those things up front as age from 0 to 3. The other piece is that as we get into the mainstream curriculum of perhaps history, all we see is our counterparts at leadership roles, or we see them on the TV through imagery in leadership roles, i.e., cartoons, right? Look at all the cartoons we grew up on: He-Man, G.I. Joe. You keep going on, but you would get where I'm coming from, is that most of the leadership roles, the saviors, if you will, are not painted like us.
Correct.
So when you go through a curriculum of history, if you just tackle elementary school, the assimilation process is already in play. Whereas when we're learning about, or excuse me, when children are learning about the historical figures, most of them that have accomplished or made a foothold in history, we learn about them that don't look like us.
Correct.
So what we've ended up doing in our household is making sure that, during a period of time, if they're talking about the 20s, if you will, they might talk about, FDR, but I want to know what was going on in the Harlem Renaissance. I want to know, some of the greats that were doing their thing to enact change within the community. And so that, we're identifying with people consciously that really speak to us and our DNA. And it brings out something that is more powerful in us, because, I identify with somebody who has done great things, versus me identifying with nobody. But when I look left and right in my classroom, I see people that look like the historical figures that we're reading about. And the obvious and natural thing to start doing mentally, subconsciously, is identifying greatness in other people and not ourselves. So that's kind of where I see in that long version of the answer, one specific area that I would say we need to be woke in, which is education.
Well, let me. Okay, well, let's dive in there, because let's attach this whole woke idea to the classroom. There have been countless, um, news shows, and as well as breaking reports that there are a lot of people from that community are now sharing their sexuality and their identities, etc., with and making it like a part of off-topic conversations in class, to the point where they're saying that there have been so many reports of children who would rather have these conversations about sexual things, and I'll just leave it there, instead of having adequate learning time for real curriculum, content. So it's like this is becoming a norm that we talk about. Not only that, coming, because remember, it started with the reading in the libraries, and now it's the teachers are now exposing themselves and telling them that, yes, I am XYZ. And then now we had those bills that we just talked about, that they were passing, how they were starting to um, take a closer look at monitoring free speech on college campuses, which we also found out that both of those HR bills were kind of coupled together, because it trickled down to K through 12, where then it makes it extremely difficult for a teacher to have an opposing opinion. So, how can we be woke now? Because this bill was passed just a few days ago. All the while we're being, inundated with the Will and Jada stuff and the new Kardashian show and the Bobby Brown documentary and all this stuff. They're posting in all over television, but the whole while running under the radar, this is being pushed through. I mean, and it passed. What was it, like 90 something to 30 something, or 90 something to 60 something,
Yeah,
like that.
you're right.
So, I mean, should we stay woke? I think we should be woke now even more in education because of all of these now new variables that our children have to deal with, and we have to deal with as parents. I think now, when you start talking about what we gave as the definition of woke, is the person who actually does the research prior to coming to a final conclusion. I think it's most important for us that for those that have children in public schools, I think we are the ones that are most at risk, because public school is basically the bottom of the barrel when it comes into the education system. And so we already know that anything that they want to push through, the public school is going to get it.
Mhm.
The public school is going to get it. There's no dodging it. There's no getting around it. You only get a little bit of safety when you start getting into charter schools and Montessori schools and private schools and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But the majority of our children are in public schools.
Right.
So we've got to be, in my opinion, woke in education, just like you said, not just for the fact of, what did Derek Gray say? Unlearn to relearn, but also to the fact of understanding that how they use the indoctrinating system of what they call public school education, and how it shapes the entire culture and the ways of life of millions of people. It's almost like you're creating zombies, or you got the sheep mentality. And so we got to become more aware, because we also found out last night that in Georgia they have taken off of the list about 10,000 or 20,000 books that speak about race, that speak about civil rights, that speak about anything of that nature. They've went through, and we've got to begin to highlight this stuff. They've went through and combed through books to find out anything that will relate to critical race theory, anything that will relate to making anybody feel bad in the process. They are going to now call it irrelevant documentation, or it's unauthorized, or it's invalid. They are trying to cover themselves and shift a narrative through the educational system. And it's got so many prongs to it, because not only are they trying to manipulate and shape the mind and the reality and the morals and the values of children when it comes to their physiology and their biology, but they're also attacking their psychology, because now these children are being told that you can go back and forth between genders when you choose. And on top of that, now we have, we're giving these children all of this extra authority to make these life-changing decisions before puberty. All the while, there are schools that now have gender-neutral bathrooms. Now they're passing laws that anything that they taught us in school and it was gospel, now they're saying they're not going to teach that anymore. So it was okay to indoctrinate you and I, but now you have a total different narrative that's going to be good for the new generation. No, this new narrative is just as poisonous as the one that we encountered. It's the same. It's the same devil, different dress. It's the same situation. And I think, I agree with you 100% that we're going to have to unlearn and relearn, but we're also going to have to begin to understand that there is a narrative being pushed in our school system that is dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. But at the same time, we're going to have to become aware and know how to navigate properly So if we're going to keep our kids in public school, then we got to be able to equip them and arm them likewise. So
Yeah.
I think
Let me
conversations at home are going to be important.
Yeah, let me just add to that some specifics for those that are listening here, because we got some a couple of comments here, and I definitely want to put some specifics here to it. This is from Georgia Public Broadcasting, GP or GPB. Students in one Pennsylvania school district were not allowed to read a biography of the first Black president, Barack Obama. Really?
My point is
In some Tennessee classrooms, a nonfiction comic book about the atrocities of the Holocaust was banned. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And, in the article that you sent me earlier, I mean, It wasn't just nonfiction books. It was, children's books that talk about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, this is beyond making your child feel where they can identify with people. I mean, it's basically just erasing history so that certain people don't feel uncomfortable. I mean, how can you not feel comfortable reading a children's book about Martin Luther King Jr.? I can understand to the degree of what there are. I should say understand. I should say rather, I could hear them when they say Rosa Parks, only because it highlights why she had to get off of the bus, but refused not to. So, there's the conflict that, again, they don't want to highlight or really bring to light the narrative of how bad our culture was treated in the past, and even still to this day. So there wouldn't be any books that talk about the definitely the police brutalities. I mean, some of the innovative discussions that people like Brittany Bell out there, quite frankly, if there's an agenda item to research how the police, treat different groups, that type of conversation would be frowned upon, because there's a potential that Black people get victimized, and our people, counterparts, we feel bad because somebody treated somebody else bad, so that makes white America look bad in front of the whole classroom. I mean, that's really, the sense that we're getting with that. I'll go ahead and say, Sam Lucas, he talks here. Sammy Lucas says, in a different perspective about being woke, he also says we should be woke in agriculture as a people and community. Definitely, sir, about that. It is the foundation of civilization. We were nomads before agriculture. Only when we started cultivating crops and animals did you see things really advance. In my opinion, not having the ability or system set in place to feed ourselves is at the root of our deficiencies as a people and community. That's a great point, Sam. It's the history of our people. When we talk about ancient Egypt, that whole system was founded on agriculture. Absolutely.
Right.
So,
well, I agree. Agriculture is a huge one. I think I think it's one that we're definitely going to have to put it in the forefront. Um, uh, Changing that, I just really think it gets down to the bottom of the fact that they want to shift the narrative. They want to get to the point where, they can find a way to refocus our attention in the wrong direction, so that they can continue pushing something else, which would ultimately be detrimental for the masses. Dr. Yaz Bradshaw, shout out fam, Yasmin. She says, how do we change this narrative? It's like we have to tell our kids to learn this garbage for the sake of the grade, but educate them based on our beliefs and truths. I think, Dr. Yaz, one of the ways that we change this narrative is to call it what it is. It's indoctrination. You go to school to take tests. We've come to the conclusion that none of us have had to use 410 or 4 and whatever. None of us have had to utilize all that information. That is important for your existence, but it doesn't give you foundational principles on how to live and thrive as a citizen in this country. We're going to have to tell our children, you're going to school and you're being taught to take tests, because ultimately this is how they grade and give the community and this is the way they give society litmus tests on how they plan out for prisons and etc. We're going to have to begin to acknowledge it. Yes, all of us have people in our family who are teachers and educators, and God knows without them, we would be in a bad situation. We get it, and we know that they have to teach, they have to teach to the test, and if they want to support their families, we get all of that. What we're saying is we're going to have to then become more transparent and say yes, this is a mandated part of our society for the most part. And if we're going to participate in this process, let's not go into this participation half cocked or with our expectations out of order. I think that's where we drop the ball. We expect too much out of our education and not enough out of being able to be educated and to learn outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
I was telling my again the book I'm reading, The Compound Effect, and he's talking about the fact that if we learn small deposits on a daily basis is what makes the snowball become an avalanche. You have to consistently take those small steps and keep doing such until you see the change. It's going to be hard for us to really see a real change in the way we view education if we don't stop if we don't change our perspective on this educational system. We're going to have to start growing outside of the classroom. That's a snowball. You take what you've learned in class, go home, and then really dissect what you learn. Put what you learn to the test according to more information. There's that woke concept again. You see what I'm saying? I think if we do that, Dr. Yaz, I think that would be a great start. It's just admitting that that it is a game, and it's a game we're just going to have to play. That to start out, to make it very simple, that's my opinion. I mean, am I wrong, Black? Did I miss something? Am I off?
No, I think what I was going to just push forward a segue because I think you tapping right on it on that next question. I think that's spot on because what we're going to see is really a parallel of two Black Americas. And we're probably even seeing that now to some degree. But you're going to see a woke community and one that is not as woke. So the question being, does being woke ostracize us from our people?
I think it does. I think it does because of the lack of our people's true understanding of what woke is. In our community, woke has a negative stigma. Anytime anytime you I mean, and we do it to each other in almost every context of conversation. If you here it is, New Jack City, Christopher Williams being this quote unquote college guy, when he got the education, what I'm saying, he was the guy that was the smart one or whatever. But Nino Brown always had something to say about how professional he was. He was considered woke because he was the educated one. He was the one that didn't have to do the drug dealing and all that to come out the hood. For example, anybody, when you were in college or whatever, you got your little college degree and you went around some of your family members who didn't have a degree. You were trying to, you know where I'm going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you get that opportunity. You think you know it. Oh, you woke now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it happens in the religious community. That's why we have debates. It's just, it goes on and on and on. But again, in that context, I think it is negative for the most part in our community because I think it's really the majority of the people wanting to hold on to the information they have, and they have a fear of entertaining anything outside of their realm of understanding. So just like, when we were children, I'll give my example. Like in church, in a lot of religious communities, they really talk bad and talk down on astrology, natal charts, and things like that. They think it's really coined as divination and tarot and all of that kind of stuff, spiritual divination and all that. But in fact, that person that would then say, "I don't believe in tarot cards and all that stuff," would then tell you, would then come and ask you what month your birthday in? Are you a Virgo? Or you a Aries? Hold on, wait. So you're gonna use woke when you get ready. You know what I'm saying? So woke kind of flies around in our community so much that it's a loose term, but I think when you settle down in the conversation, you start talking deep, they're gonna say, "Oh, you woke, huh?" And then I think that shifts it to something that's unnecessary. But
let me actually dial back just one more, because it was a good point that Brittany Bell made there, is that, talking about education, just for a taste here. The tricky part is parents cannot, teach what they don't know. And she'll add that they have been indoctrinated as well.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Tupac said, babies having babies. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about the whole situation. Like, she's absolutely right. It is, and it's a system again that they knew would run like this. Is a system that has been in effect. They tried it on every immigrant. They tried it on every immigrant group. But when they tried it on us, for some reason, well, I know why it happened. They gave them outs. That's how those fire departments and all that stuff, because they got out. So some of them went to the fire department, some of them went to the police department, some of them went over here, and that's how they got out the hood. Right. But they didn't give us those opportunities, and so they knew if we could trap them in here, they'll have babies that think just like them, that are impulsive just like them, that aren't forward thinking just like them, that don't critically think just like them, and they know it'll become like baby kids. We don't die, we multiply, and they know that. So Dr. Bell is right. It's absolutely right. We're gonna have to really find out. Well, here's a good question: Who do we try? Who do we pour our energy to change the narrative? Like what group, what age group? Because now she brings up a good question. Because out the essence, we fear what we don't know, and that would actually kind of trickle down to me. So, do we start with the children? Do we start with anybody 15 years and older and under, or who do we start with to pour into, to say we're going to pour into you all to see, you know what I'm saying, or for you all to help us change our narrative, or is everybody game?
Yeah, I've always had a sense to it, the answer being the youth. Now I can't give you an age group per se, but when it comes to the minds of youth, you've got some critical thinking minds at a young age, because they are willing to ask. I mean, I got a conversation that I had with a 6-year-old, and he's gonna ask me why like 12 times. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying, is that you got naturally inquisitive, children at those ages, and then at the same time when they get older, and nowadays, with the school systems, teaching critical thinking to a degree, introducing variable topics and different perspectives on those topics, which is, by the way, why some of this comes into play as controversy, because you're trying to introduce various topics and perspectives on them, such as history. But at the same time, as far as what we can do, I think it's focused on the youth, just because that's where the questions will get asked. They're willing to balance, dual or triple perspectives and come to their own decisions or pathways. Whereas, when you're talking about older people, yeah, sometimes that's a hard rock to try to tap, man, because they're set in those ways, and sometimes the belief systems are not even sometimes, most of the time, their belief systems are really intact, and you cannot break through that. And the argument is worthless to try to have that discussion unless you're really with an open-minded person that is going to do the research and come to an understanding, or at least an understanding of a disagreement. Brittany Bell says here, and I'll show this also, if we can start pre-K through 8th grade, yes, that's that sweet spot I like there, Brittany. But they will have a strong enough foundation to challenge false teachings at even the high school level. That's a great point as well, because high school, you really get to see where the result starts to spew over when people start hearing, or high schoolers start to hear what their parents are identifying with, and that's where, especially then beyond high school, you're like, okay, I didn't know you thought like that, really. So I get where she's going with that, but definitely in our community, pre-K through 8th grade, like I was saying, you got that malleable area with thought processes and the brain and what it will accept, as far as sponge-like information. I think that's a spot-on answer there, Brittany, for that. Sam Lucas also adds here, we are people of strong tradition, excuse me. So we do not do well with new information. Absolutely. That's that older generation concept there. It challenges our whole belief system, right? Out the window. The whole woke community comes with information that wasn't meant to get to us. Absolutely. Everybody can't digest the info. Yeah, that's good. Bro, I think you're on mute there, or are you?
I appreciate that, bro. I want to piggyback on the ending of that part B of that conversation. He said we all can't digest the info. I think that he's absolutely right that a lot of people cannot digest the info, and because they cannot digest the info, I think they handle the response irresponsibly to me, because for some reason, I don't know why, a lot of people in our community, we are always we're always on edge when someone brings us new information.
Yes.
And I think this is a part of our programming as well, for us to always question everything, to not find true value and true trust in anything, in our friends and our family, especially when we have entrepreneurial pursuits, business partnerships, and things like that. We have been, because of the neighborhoods and the surroundings we grew up in. We grew up in places where we had to watch our backs and lock our doors, and make sure that when we left the house in certain neighborhoods, we left lights on and stuff like that. So I think it's all been on purpose, but I also think that we're going to have to stop. And I'm not saying Brother Lucas is doing this. I'm saying in general, I think a lot of us are going to have to stop the idea of trying to how's the best way to put this? We're going to have to stop trying to always make it a situation where it's something that we can't get out of. It's something that we're perpetually stuck in.
Right. I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to start giving ourselves a little grace to understand that we have the capability of doing so. The bus boycott proves that. And the bus boycott, it take anybody with a PhD or a doctorate degree to understand that, the power of group economics. I think we're just going to have to start taking our own responsibilities in our own families and our own family reunions and gatherings, to start saying, hey, like, I know this is new information, but hear me out. This is where I got it from. These are my sources. What do you think about it? I think we're going to have to start involving them in the conversation. And then those that don't want to hear it, find ways to try to include them, or try to, I don't know, prepare your comment in a way where they can understand it on their level, that maybe you can help them. But I think we're going to have to start doing it as a whole. And I appreciate Brother Sam for giving that perspective, because it just allowed me to think about certain sections of the way we have conversations with each other. I think we leave ourselves speaking over each other as if we'll always be stuck there. Like, everybody ain't gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? So
that's particularly a challenge, and I keep going back to this, and it's somewhat in unfortunately in the vein of what you're getting across, and I might be kind of complicit with that. Is that it happens a lot in the southern region, because when we're talking about, like, for instance, slave mentality, not working well with other Black businesses, or a distrust of other Black businesses.
Exactly.
I hear that a lot, when we're talking about trying to, build alliances with Black business owners and Black leaders. I do hear that a lot, as far as the comeback. And that's it. Unfortunately, that's it. The comeback is, well, we don't work well together, or we don't trust each other. That's the problem. And, well, okay, what are we going to do about it, though?
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it goes back to like this being woke idea, and being woke in our economics, about forming, group economics type of initiatives, or finding alliances that are working together for the greater whole,
Uh-huh.
not to tear them down, so to speak, before you even did the research to find
Right.
out what that idea is really about, and actually
Mhm.
support it 150%.
Right. 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 Absolutely. I mean, I agree, and I think there's just, I mean, and all of this has many more levels to it that we're not going to get into tonight, but just for the sake of time, I wish we could. But I do think that that's something that we're going to have to really take into an account of how we see each other, and realizing that we all don't have to be the same. You know what I'm saying? To be able to push the narrative of the people forward. I think we need diversity. I think we need nerds. We need guys in our community who are smart and intellectual and entrepreneurial and innovative. We need men in our community that can think beyond the normal mind. We need these guys, and our women as well. We need them. And I think we need to appreciate and value them, because a lot of times when people become woke or become researched or get into the know, a lot of times it becomes difficult to even exist with these people. It becomes real adversarial a lot, and controversial. And I think that's another group of individuals that when they get to that place, when they get woke and they feel like, okay, now my people don't accept me. Now I become an enemy, or I become an outsider. You know what I'm saying? So now our conversations are always argumentative, and you're wrong and stuff like that. And I just think I think, to me, the woke community is just a community who thinks outside of the box. People who can take a different context, and create a broader conversation around it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what a woke person is. They open the door to the conversation. I think that's a great way to look at it. Dr. Brittany Bell says, um, let's see, can I see that on my end? Okay, it's the classic. It's the classic WEB ideologically talented tenth. It is not necessary for all Black people to know everything. It's necessary for all Black people to know their roles. Then specialization of specific information will form a truly functional community. I agree. And that particular thought process, I didn't even know I was thinking on the level of W.E.B. Du Bois. So pat myself on the back for thinking that way. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, he's right, and I completely concur. I think we get ourselves bogged down in the minutia when we start arguing about who knows more or who's more woke than the other. I think we just need to accept it as a part of our community.
So here's a question, and this is
Yeah.
probably not for anyone to be able to answer, but something to ponder on. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for that push into that direction. But who is our talented 10th in Valdosta, Lowndes County, South Georgia? Have we even assessed that? Because that's an unapologetic point of view that W.E.B. Du Bois had, that in that time frame, and that was not far after slavery, Reconstruction, and everything. And they're thinking on that level compared to where we are now. We are years, decades beyond slavery, but
Right.
we're cautious to think about our talented 10th and working that angle.
Well, I can answer for you. I can answer that for you very quickly. Our talented tenth are the guys that are getting football scholarships.
Gotcha.
That's the talent
Gotcha.
that that's the
And
tenth of the
he's
talent
being
that we.
funny, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Yeah. Let's put that disclaimer out.
Yeah, right.
And that's not a
But the
hit
mentality,
on
though, is
anybody. That's not a hit on anybody. What I'm saying is the talented tenth that we focus on aren't the academic students. Our talented tenth are kids that we look over and don't speak to and don't interact with, don't know their names. Some of them we might know, we might have went to school with their parents, but these are the unknowns. These are the sages of our community, who are like nobodies, because we talk a lot about saying that we're going to support our children, saying we're going to push this narrative, saying we want to lift academics over sports. but every Friday you're dragging your child to a football game, or every other day you're dragging your child to a basketball game or track meet or something, and you're not giving them balance. You're not allowing them to see that you can be successful outside of a sport. And I think when we start doing that and making that a reality, and then allowing children to have these connections and these relationships with people who are professionals that look like them, and then also being able to share the value in what you do as a professional. I think that's how we get these people, notified or notarized. But our talented 10th are people we don't know. A lot of them are musicians. A lot of them are athletes, but a lot of them, work regular jobs, work 2 jobs, or do a lot of volunteering, or work at the boys' club, and we don't know them. And I think that's the horrible part of it all, is that we don't give the same energy to academics as we do with sports, and it shows the missing piece.
Exactly. I'm going to highlight that because Brittany says I literally have a chapter in the book on that topic. So this is now definitely a plug for Dr. Brittany Bell there, the missing piece. She identifies a lot of solutions when it comes to especially the education system, but our family structure and even our just disposition about raising a family under an education system in
Right.
that book. And so definitely a shout out to that.
Absolutely. And Dr. Bell, if you would put your information in the chat, so the other members can go cop them a book. I don't have a copy, so I need to send my address. I need to give it to Mr. Bell, and he can send it on down, so we can make sure that I get a copy and I can read the missing piece. But I'm sure it's an amazing read. So please put your information in the chat so we can get that out to the family as another
an additional point there, and this is something that I made sure that we got involved in when we got to the middle school level, is that as a parent, excuse me, but advice to parents: email or call your kid's school and ask what clubs are available for your child. That seems so minuscule and like small advice, but we do not practice that
right
on a religious basis, if you will.
Right.
Because the first thing, like we already said before, is that we throw our kids into sports, and because they can run fast, so we throw them in the track, or they hit hard, or they got some stockiness to them, so we should play football. We've got to get our kids involved in extracurricular activities that are academic focused and based. And it goes back to now connecting back to what Samuel Lucas was talking about as far as agriculture, getting kids exposed to even FFA programs, getting kids exposed to 4-H. If it's not even for a year or half of a year as an elective or just a club opportunity, get them involved in something additional with regards to sports that can complement that academic side beyond the classroom, because that's where you're going to see your kids peak out as far as their interests and start to see, wow, my kid really, if kids like to play games, so put them into the VEX robotics TSA after school program. Spend a little time in there and see if they really like it. You might be surprised. You might be surprised that your child actually likes the extracurricular activities that are academic based and not football.
Right.
So what we do then, once our talented 10th start peaking out with skills that actually are not athletic.
Right.
What you gonna do then?
Go ahead. But you know what? I think that's an excellent point, because that's not just a question for the parents. I think that's also a question for the athletes. Yeah. For the ones that skate by just so they can play. Now, when you have other people that look like you that are being awarded for their academia instead of what they can do on the field, and if they get even more accolades, it might make you look around and say, you know what? You know what I'm saying? I can get a piece of that too. If I just apply myself and, so I can be successful on and off the field. That's what people like your father did for me. Like Coach Wright and Coach, what's the other one? Seymour and other guys like that, that Demps and Harvey Moore and all those people who were with us, who pushed us. But at the same time, challenged us.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? To, okay, you do well on the field, now do well somewhere else,
Yeah.
and then show that you could be consistent in that, and that you're not just a one-trick pony. I remember Coach Jay used to always talk about that, being a one-trick pony, and a lot of our children are handicapped by the things they're blessed by. And I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna expound, because they have all this physical capability, they have all this prowess, they have all this, these genetics that are supreme. But then at the same time, if it's not harnessed correctly, they'll give all of their energy to that, and then they'll struggle in other areas, even with self-control and picking the right friends and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a trickle down effect. So I don't know, bro. I just think that we definitely going to have to, like she said, get those missing pieces, start applying it, so then we can explore other. You love to draw. I used to love to draw. We used to love to put things together. I really believe I still have an engineer's mind. I really do, because I dissect everything from piece to piece, part to part, how it starts, how it ends, what lubricates, what's turning this to turn that. Like, I look at stuff like that in every way, and I just believe that there are certain areas that I could have explored, but my blessing also allowed it, also kind of brought, not a curse, but a crutch. You know what I'm saying? That I lean so heavy on this physical that in certain situations I kind of shortchanged myself on another side. And I think that's what we're doing to our children when we always focus on, sports or band or whatever, or go to college and do what? You know what I'm saying? For what? So you send me off and you spending this money, and I spend 2 years and $30,000, and I still don't know what I want to do. It's like, it's crazy. But
there it is again. We dial it back to what you're talking about there, the concept of being woke. All right, when it comes to, let's just say, skill sets, and really the variety of things that this melanin can produce. When it comes to our athleticism, our academia, our social appetite. I mean, we can really excel in a lot of things at the same time.
Absolutely.
But what we got to be careful about in this area, South Georgia, we have to be careful, because what are we typically called as far as Titletown, Wintersville? What this community focuses way too much on, especially with our African American boys and girls, or boys, males, I should say, is football and athleticism. And we put on a pedestal our athletes. Meanwhile, we do not push forward our like you just said, our potential engineers, our potential entrepreneurs, our potential welders. We don't put those people on a pedestal like we do the running back, the quarterback.
Man, that was the foundation of our communities, man. All the welders and the carpenters and the electricians and the plumbers.
I'm sorry, for Brother Lucas's sake, also the farmer, the agriculture expert.
Exactly.
For Brother Joshua Dawson, right? All right, that's a pillar in our community that we are not even tapping into. I would also give a shout out. He's probably not even around, but matter of fact, sometimes we do get Brother Montgomery chomping. What do you say? Chomping and chatting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give his son Cedric Montgomery a shout out, because he was one of those that we saw in the high school area when we did the entrepreneurs program. He took on an agricultural type of challenge for his business idea. And that brother is still doing well in that arena and in his college curriculum. And so that's one of the guys to kind of now segue to what Sam said. And thank you as well, Sam, for the acknowledgement, but also what you're doing, what you're representing. But Sam also says, that's why I give you guys props to you. A lot of our talent leaves and then we don't come back. Not only did you guys come back, but you're contributing in a major way. We do appreciate that, and I think this is one of those areas to where we've got to cultivate an appetite to come back to areas that you've come from, you've gone to, and now you want to recontribute now what you've learned in other areas afar and benefit the community here. And that's just essentially what we've been able to do, thankfully. But I do want to make sure that we give it a shout out to those young brothers that have gone on beyond high school, like Cedric Montgomery, because really that's the piece that's missing is
Right.
the authentic platform for those people who are excelling, if not more than football. Because what a lot of, and I just have to say it like this, bro, a lot of narrative is not shown and highlighted to the where are they now aspect.
Yeah.
Because if we actually were honest and we were actually accepting of the stats of it, a lot of people that we put on the pedestal for football is from a across the team perspective. I'm not talking about the ones we want to select and say, oh yeah, he did make it. No, but when we talk about how much we push football from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, we put a lot of emphasis on football when we're, like you're saying, losing potential talent because we're not gearing people towards at least multifaceted arenas.
Well, you know what, bro, and I'm gonna say this because I know we got two more questions, but I believe when we talk about woke, and you talk about being woke in this circumstance. I think that we have been lulled to sleep
Yeah,
by the abilities of our children and the possibility of being a millionaire. I
yeah,
think
right.
that dream has put to sleep a lot of people who
Yeah,
actually have unlimited possibility capabilities in whatever talent they have. Because think about this. The guys who want, not gonna say all of them, but there were a lot of people who wanted to thrive in the South in their business, etc., and could not. So they left to go to the North so they could have more opportunities, correct? So
yeah,
those guys got the opportunity to start businesses, to become lawyers, to live in nice homes and in New York and Detroit and all those places that they went. But then you got those that stayed down south who kind of wanted to remain in that environment for whatever reason. Family, family ties, fear, whatever it might have been. And at the end of the day, I think that the guy that left thrived. The guy that stayed, a lot of them struggled, but they survived. I think we're going to have to get to the point that sports, especially football, has been highlighted in our community and has been pushed to our boys as opportunities to get out as a pipe dream. But at the same time, the period of time where you learn to have a passion for football, to have a drive, to want to go to college and go to the NFL, are the formative years of a young boy's life. So I think having for that child to have a dream of wanting to go to the NFL lulls him to sleep of the other possibilities of how he could provide for his family and himself in the meantime.
yeah,
Because our mind is so much on, oh, I'm going to the college, I'm going to the league, I'm doing this. So everything you do is around that talent, is around that skill. But again, you become a one-trick pony. But when you realize that your trick runs out when you're 22 and 23 and 24, you've
yep.
wasted formative years of your life building the foundations to how you're going to support yourself for the next 40, 50 years.
Great perspective.
So I really think we have to be woke. Yeah, it's going to ostracize us, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to ostracize us to the point to be the group that was pushed out to do better, pushed out to show a different result of what it's
Well,
like on the other side.
it truly is that talented 10th
Yeah,
concept.
yeah,
Because the talented 10th wasn't necessarily the group of popularity amongst the greater masses.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it's just necessary in order for the progression.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you want to move forward with this next question then?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Is pro-black being woke?
Mm.
Is pro-black being woke? Is pro-black being
Talk
woke?
to us. Talk to us. What's the opinion of of choice out there is pro-black being
I think
woke.
yes, I believe yesterday when I was talking to Suzette about it, I felt like they're sisters, but they're not the same. I felt like,
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I feel you on that.
you're gonna be pro-black, then that means you're for the advancement of black people. You marry a black spouse, you have black children, you do black business, you support black agendas, you vote black, like all these things, or you vote for the betterment of black people. I think that's being pro-black. Being woke, on the other hand, is again you being that person who's willing to go the extra mile. But I think you can't be pro-black without being woke, because when you're woke, you understand the value and you understand the statement that you're making when you are pro-black.
Right.
So I think that's why I said they're sisters. Thank you, Jarkay. What up, sis? She said definitely not the same. They're cousins. Yeah, that's exactly. I feel the same way. They can't exist alone, but with those two terms, I think they have to support one another. If you're gonna be pro-black, you gotta be woke. If you're gonna be woke, then I think it'll lead to you being pro-black. So that's my opinion on it, bro. I don't know. I mean, what you think?
I mean, hey, you know what I'm saying for sure. But yeah, I agree with you. Definitely a good way to separate the two, that they are different, but one in relation. Yeah, but you have to. Like, I agree with what you're saying. I'd just be repeating the same thing, but in a different way. That in order to be woke, yeah, you've got to be pro-black. At first, there is. As we said before, as you've already pointed out, that there's a level of digging, research. I would also add sacrifice. When you look at the greats that we've had in the past, go back Obama, go back Jesse Jackson, Nelson Mandela. I mean, I'm gonna miss people, so forgive me, but Malcolm X, and hit the greatest hits, if you will. But there was also a sense of sacrifice, that comes with being woke, because there's not a clear acceptance across the board with mainstream, because you are saying things that people aren't ready to hear. Because I mean, it's one thing, and somebody help me out, with this enlightenment thing, because if you've had some level of enlightenment, and I'm not saying that I'm in the promised land enlightenment, but there's a level of enlightenment that I have to where I just can't go back or backwards at this point. Once I've seen and read and seen supporting detail, there are some things that I just cannot unlearn. And so when it comes to being pro-black, it's an apologetic point of view, because I know too much at this point, and I can see things in a certain lens, to where I can see enough is not being done. And so those are arguments that I have, offline, sometimes online here, in the vein of being pro-black. Those are some of the reasons why I say and do what I do in the community, with an agenda attached to it internally. Same way with Dr. Bell, Brittany Bell there, because we've had the conversations before. But when I was visiting schools from time to time, I had an honor this past month in March to visit with VSU students and VECA students, to speak to them about financial independence, leading to financial freedom. And that's intentional. I mean, because we don't hear that. And we need to understand that. And so there's a certain passion I have when speaking to certain students, because we are not afforded those opportunities, self-inflicted, but also externally systemic inflections. So there's a certain wokeness about it that has to come with being pro-black. And at the same time, as I said before, you're gonna say some things that others aren't ready to hear, but they're necessary to hear. And sometimes the mainstream is one of the counterparts you have to deal with. Brittany says, let's see, actually, I know Jarkay said first there. She says, it's some woke people that need to take a nap, though. I can hear you
I
on
like
that.
the wordplay. I like the
Yeah,
wordplay. Sis.
I
That was
like
a
the
bar.
yes.
Bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Brittany says being pro-black allows one to be optimistic about all aspects of blackness. Being woke will cause you to leave some folks behind. That's what I'm talking about. Because you are, you are forced,
Four.
is her correction there. You are forced to cut loose the foolishness that has found itself attached to that said blackness. You're right. Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
that's a wonderful perspective to have. Um, and that's what I was saying. How when I was talking earlier in the last question, how a lot of times when people get to that point where they're called woke and they've been ostracized so much, they separate themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't realize I cannot thrive and move forward with people who don't want to. And I think that's that's something that we're going to have to come to grips with in our community. That I guess I'll have to back up. Not really, but because I
What
was
do you
going to go
mean?
back to the point that we made about Sam, saying that everybody just won't get it. But now I think Sam just might have cornered me in an argument to make me bite my tongue for a second, because if we're gonna be woke and pro-black, and if wokeness causes us to walk away from a certain level of blackness, then we're gonna have to come to the conclusion that everybody just ain't gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? So
That's a reality that I've definitely reckoned with. Even in some of the arenas and walks that I'm taking at this point, is that we're gonna have to leave behind. And I hate to say that in some way, but I mean it's just natural. I mean, like I said, you go back to Martin Luther King. Not everybody was for Martin Luther King. Not everybody was obviously for Malcolm X. And there were some people that voted against Barack Obama. Right. So you're not
right.
going to have everybody behind you. And like I said
Yes.
before, you're saying things that people just don't identify with. And
Right.
Jarkay even says, once you get to a certain level, you cannot go back. It's almost sickening to even
I
think.
agree. I
Exactly.
agree that right there, that deserves a Don DeMarco right there. It gets sickening. You're absolutely right. My
I gotta
bad, man. I
get
ain't mean
that. Gotta
to
get that on deck for you, bro.
That is crazy. My bad, man. I ain't mean to hijack your comment, but go ahead, bro.
No, that was the gist of it. I mean, it's just that I just want to really emphasize that it's not easy being woke in its true fullest sense, not the commercialized version of woke, but just when you are doing things that are not only pro-black, but you're trying to educate, you're trying to walk in a certain fashion, you're trying to dig and expose research. It really is a thankless type of journey, because
Okay.
there are so many opposing factors that are walking with you the whole way.
Well, that just made me think. So does that mean, or would it be safe to say that all of this black unity that we're speaking of is antithetical to being woke and pro-black? Because if I'm going to be woke, and if it's eventually going to cause me to abhor a certain level of blackness, then at that particular point, that's going to cause me to then separate myself from said blackness. And if we have a large, not a large, but a certain, because you already know it doesn't take a large part of the control group to change the pendulum. It just takes what, like 20%, 30%, something like that. If you can get a 30% shift, you know what I'm saying, you can kind of change the swing of a pendulum. So we don't need a whole lot of people, huh? Am I right?
I'd
Is
be
it?
happy with that.
I'd be happy. Okay, I'm close. All right. But you know what I'm saying? You think that when you get to that point, should we be expecting that there's going to be a certain portion of our community that will leave? And if that be the case, should we stop trying to demonize and stigmatize the people who do leave? Because like now it's like because it's like we're almost talking out of both sides of our mouth when we're talking about what's best for the black community. Because we'll say, okay, we don't want you to leave the hood. We don't want you to do this. We don't want you to do that. Bring it back. Come back to the hood. But then we say, well, wokeness will cause me to separate myself from a certain level of blackness. So help me find the happy medium. Help me find the happy medium of how we. Yeah.
Well, let me go back to the context of that in relation to blackness, because this is what Brittany said earlier. That's where this came from. And this is the second sentence. Being woke will cause you to leave some folks behind because you are forced to cut loose the foolishness that has found itself attached to that said blackness. Right. So it's that pseudo blackness that she's referring to. And that's what I want to attach to what we're saying, is that you have to separate from that pseudo blackness, whatever that means for you, because being comical here, bonnets are not blackness. All right. So I'm going to separate myself from that. All right. So that's what we're talking about in a very lighthearted manner. But one of the things that, I really believe is that it's not more so the act of separation, but it is more of the passiveness of you're going to leave people behind. Right. It's not that I want to separate. It's more so that everyone cannot follow. And I give you another example. In this journey to spawn a Black Business Alliance, I've just come to terms with not everybody is going to get why we need to do something from an alliance standpoint. There are going to be people that don't get it and pick at it to say, oh, they're trying to do something and it's just going to fall apart, or oh, they're trying to do something, but it's not this. Or, you got some people who are happy where they are with certain mainstream entities that just will not leave that house, if you will. Yeah. And so you're not going to be able to bring everyone along with the pro-blackness, pro-woke agenda, because everybody does not want to sacrifice, going back to that word, everyone does not want to sacrifice what they think they're giving up if I leave the big house. Going back to these concepts, this is where that comes from. If you're Nat Turner, do you think that everybody's going to revolt with you? No.
Gotcha.
I'm good, massa. So no, I just make funny of that, but it is what it is. You're just not going to bring everyone along with you.
Well, that goes back to the Harriet Tubman quote. Like, she could have saved thousands more, but she couldn't. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Yeah, got you. So, I just wanted to bring that point to the light, because I think we're going to have to start accepting both sides of that coin of being woke and pro-Black. That it is going to cause you to separate from pseudo-Blackness, but then bring you to true Blackness, into your true tribe, because then you'll be able to connect. You'll have a higher level of vetting people when it comes to having people in your circle and calling people your family tribe. So I get it. But Dr. Bell says, or stop accepting certain foolishness to be associated with Blackness. There are fools in every community. However, other communities don't allow the fools to control the narrative. Redefine Blackness. I totally agree.
Yeah, that's great.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree that it's our responsibility to redefine Blackness. And this is something I've been adopting the past few months when it comes to how I dress. Of course, you know me, but anybody that's kind of followed me through the years, I've always been a sneakerhead. All as well. I've always been a sneakerhead. I've always liked to wear caps. I've always made sure that my hat was going to match my shoes. My belt was going to match my shoes. My watch and my belt, and my shoes are going to match. Like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And everybody knew that. I'm gonna keep my my beard together. I'm gonna keep my hair together. But t-shirts, jumpsuits, windsuits. I like comfortable stuff. But now I'm moving more into another phase of my life where I like sleek, relaxed, comfortable. What is that? Professional look. That European look, just solid color t-shirt, solid color blazer, jeans, some nice Chelsea boots, or some nice slacks. Like, that's my new vibe. That's my new wave right there. And I started doing it because I have a lot of young men at our church, a lot of young men in our community that we talk to and that we interact with. And I think it's good for them to see men dress like men, talking like men, interacting like men, and for them to see men having on a suit, having, being dressed up or whatever, but still being relatable and still being that same guy that can give you this information, that can have a conversation, laugh and joke with you. But at the same time, I know how to be professional as well. You see what I'm saying? To give them that balanced look, give them that balanced experience again. So all the men that they talk to don't have their pants hanging halfway down off the butt and, gold everywhere and tats everywhere. And they see success like that. So they don't think the man in the suit is successful because he ain't walking around with 10 bands in his pocket. You see what I'm saying? Right. So I think us, like you're saying, redefining blackness by marrying black people. Stop having, all these erroneous relationships and be able to, find real, foundational, lifelong relationships that we can actually walk in and show forth for our children. That's how we redefine blackness, redefining the way we eat. There's just a lot of ways that we can do it. So I think this woke conversation is really, really important because it allows us to really look at ourselves and figure out what can we do different. So I'm down, bro. I'm down for sure.
It's definitely when we revisit it. It's one that has legs to it in the future. We'll come back to it. I think where you're going, we got one more question there that we'll ask here for the audience. Is censorship a way to divide our community?
Yes, because I believe our research talks about that the majority of the way that we respond initially is through our feelings and emotions. And that causes us to be impulsive. And that means that really speaks to our lack of an ability to think, on a whim or on demand. And again, with this app, with these emojis, it's going to divide us. And I think, again, it's going to divide us also because of our lack of understanding and our ignorance of the political approach. We got to remember that when we see this stuff in social media, and it has shock value, and there is a way that you can spin a narrative, or create a narrative by posting a picture and a comment, or giving us information about the app, but not giving us a full spectrum of the app, just highlighting a little small piece that that's going to be clickbait. So I think we're going to have to start realizing that censorship is a dangerous tool. It really is. It's a dangerous tool that seemingly is only given to a certain section of society that's able to use that tool or weapon. For example, if I were a part of that community, I could file charges on you for a hate crime. But I can't do that as a black man. So you have a weapon that only you can use. It's almost like, I'm not even going to say the word, but when there are false accusations about certain things that happen, that weapon can only be used by one party. Okay, yeah, we can say it, but if I say it, is it going to carry the same weight as if she says it? So you create an opportunity for a certain part of your community to swing a sword or to swing a weapon where nobody can really fight back on that same level. So yes, I think it divides us. I think it really does, because it doesn't allow us to have an honest, forthright conversation about how we truly feel about stuff. Now I got to walk on eggshells, and I got to kind of navigate a conversation carefully, almost like when they asked Ketanji Brown Jackson what the definition of a woman was, and she couldn't answer it. A black woman could not answer the definition of what a woman was, and we know why she couldn't.
Right.
Because we knew it was a cornering question. We knew that they were trying to make her stand on one side or the other. With that, that's why she said, I can't answer it in this context, because there's no right answer. because she said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a biologist. And she took that route because she knew that question was going to box her in. And that's, again, how you spin a narrative and how you censor something. And now you make it a weapon for some, but you make it, you almost kind of make other people vulnerable. You leave us out there to dry side. So, yeah, it's gonna definitely divide us. Religion divides us. If we even go there. I
Well,
mean,
they always say that the most segregated day of the week is Sunday. I mean, ironic is that in a community or a nation that prides itself on desegregation, but our church community is the most segregated community on that particular day. Obviously, if you get what I'm going for the audience sake, is that you go to a black church, you go to a white church. There are some, obviously, as you said in the beginning of the show, there are outliers. Got it, great, they are. Right. However, traditionally speaking, that's the most segregated day of the week. Getting back to the censorship thing, I mean, absolutely, you're spot on. It is a way to divide our community. For the examples that you've given, we go back to this House bill where parents have the ability to challenge the curriculum or see the curriculum of every 9-week period that their teacher is going to expose their students to, and the parents have the ability to kick back on that. I wonder if is Dr. Bell still on? Hopefully so, because I do want to hear her response to some of that with that House bill concerning teachers. How really, from a Georgia teacher perspective, her take on that, as far as parents being able to see the curriculum, request it, and actually throw back challenges to the curriculum so that it's either changed, edited, or excluded from the purview of the students going forward. And if there is a problem or a conflict with that process, the parent can take it to the principal/superintendent level. And if they don't get what they want out of that, they can go all the way to the state superintendent level. So really, there's almost no end to parents getting their way if they are conservative about what's being exposed to the students or taught to the students. It's sort of a no-win situation in some cases because the pins are already set in that parameter. But what I've said, a couple of weeks ago with regards to that is that we need to play the game just as well, because if we're sitting idly and taking what we usually get within our historical context of education system, we should be challenging some things as well, because the same narrative that they're going to put together to challenge what could be seen as critical race theory or just mere various perspectives of how Dr. King felt when he was going through his times, how Malcolm X grew up, what he saw growing up. And so those things could be challenged by parents that are conservative to say, no, I don't want my child exposed to that because it makes them feel uncomfortable or inferior. Well, I don't want my child being told that they were slaves first. So I want that taken out of context. I mean, so, this really can be a battle that's no ending to it, because at some point, history is just going to be pretty much erased by both sides.
Well, exactly, and that's a point I wanted to bring up, because this is twofold, and if I was making this point, not only are you going to be shifting the narrative at this point, history started.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
She's so right, but not only does this censorship it divides us, of course. But I think also with the censorship, it also brings up an important piece about, again, them shifting the narrative and trying to bring forth some new understanding, some new way of thinking, some new way of establishing your core values. Now we're attacking your core values, traditional values, and even spiritual values. The shifting of the narrative and trying to change it and hijack it, I think there's a greater purpose behind it. Um, again, when you add this censorship, I think it does divide, but I don't think the divide is bad. I think sometimes when you add censorship, it allows you to force people to choose. I think it almost kind
Yeah.
of allows those that were hiding amongst the crowd to kind of come out and be separate and stand on what you stand on, which is what we have in our democratic society, red and blue. And so I think that censorship is a part of our fabric of who we are. I think that we don't realize that it applies into every aspect of our life. We do it with our friends, we do it with our family, we do it with our coworkers, we do it with our teammates. Everywhere we go, we find a way to censor other people to divide ourselves amongst the community group. And so we have our cliques and we have those that we vibe with better. So I don't think that the censorship and the division is a bad thing. I just think it brings more. I think it brings more light to the realities of what exists in our communities, of how people choose and how people live. That's why going back to the woke concept that was attached to that community, I think it's giving us another level of censorship to further divide the community we live in, to then realize the hodgepodge of a community that we really are. That because we were having this conversation last night about that community, and in that community, Suzette was saying that community's numbers are growing, and I said, well, that might be true, but we can't just take that number at face value. I said, what if it's the people who were hiding in plain sight, who never chose, and now they're just going from this selection to the other. Not saying that they're going because that's something they're curious about. What if it's just the people who were already that, but they didn't come out and say anything. So it's not like the numbers are actually growing. I think it's more just they switch teams. And so I was like, if they're switching teams, then we should see a drop in our numbers as an increase in their numbers. And then at that point, we can say they're growing. But I think we're going to have to take into effect there are a lot of people who did not come out that that ultimately went over to that side. And then there may be some that may have gotten a more of attraction to that because of life circumstances that went over that way. And so we just got in this conversation about that division. And I don't know. I mean, I really think that the more you divide it, it's almost like a ombre. You can break up colors in so many different shades, and you eventually get to the real green, like green.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You'll really get to the blue, you know what I'm saying? And I think that that censorship does that. And it just allows you to kind of see, the kaleidoscope of what we really live in. And then you can say, all right, they exist, they exist, they exist, they exist. And then you can say, okay, well, I agree and I don't agree. And then kind of walk accordingly. That's the way I look at it. But I don't know. I don't know. But maybe we could find out what the community thinks about it or what chat believes. But I don't know. I mean, is the division a bad thing? Because right now, the church, the woke community, the Hebrew Israelites, Islam, our Muslim brothers, and all the other faiths in between, all the other walks of life, we are all censored by some way, which has divided us. But that division has caused us to not even want to build together, work together, live amongst each other. It's like that division causes us to divide everything about us. And I think that's the problem. And not just saying that you believe something different. That's just me though. I'm not the person who feels like you have to believe in what I believe in. You know what I'm saying? Like we all have our personal choice. But I don't think because you're an atheist and I'm a Christian, or you're a Christian and I'm a Muslim, that we're ultimately enemies. I don't believe that. But I think those are just ideologies. But it could be our personal devotion, our personal dogma that keeps us separate. I don't know, but I think it's something we're going to have to begin to really address, because if we're not careful, us being woke can ostracize us.
Yeah.
You know, point where we're no good for anybody. So just me. I don't know. But yeah, man. I think it was a great conversation. You know what I'm saying? I think we had an opportunity to, to tap it a little bit, skim over the top, and just speak to it a little bit. And I'm so really grateful for those that chimed in and gave us some, some supportive comments and gave us a lot of great perspective, to really broaden the conversation. I really appreciate that. Thanks you for everybody that subscribed, everybody that liked and shared. Thank you all for those that stayed up with us tonight. I know we went a little bit later tonight. We started a little bit later, but we wanted to make sure we got an opportunity to still give you about 2 hours of good content. And we appreciate your sacrifice being here with us. Make sure you let somebody know that you watched a great show, and let them know that you got an opportunity to talk about some things that you can expand this conversation at home, over dinner, at lunch, whatever. And let's just have this conversation so we can grow comprehensively in our blackness. I don't know, bro. That's all I got for tonight. You got anything, bro, before we wrap it up?
The only other thing that I do want to plug, nothing in regards to what we talked about, other than the fact that, like you said, I'll echo that we enjoyed the audience that did chime in and gave feedback, and those that were on the silent end, clicking the like button and sharing, that's well appreciated. But for those that did join in the conversation, we're going to give you obviously a verbal shout out to, of course, Brittany Bell, Jarkay Harris, and Samuel Lucas for definitely, also Dr. Yaz Bradshaw, definitely for jumping into the conversation, being the bold ones to go back and forth with us, but primarily add perspective, like you just said. For instance, we started out talking about the education woke factor, and Sam jumped in, Lucas jumped in and talked about the agriculture aspect of that. So, that conversation definitely has some meat to it that, we weren't necessarily focused on in the first time. So definitely want to add some appreciation to that. The other thing I want to point out, just for the sake of it, is that we are coming up to another election type of season for the Board of Education at Lowndes County School Systems. I want to also make sure that we're aware that Dr. Sheila Thomas, you can find her on Facebook as well. Please follow her, friend her, and you can see that basically she is asking for your support. This sister is an AKA, so she's a sister. But also, I want to make sure that we are binding ourselves to support her in her run. If you know someone who is in her area, which I'll get some information with regards to the district she will represent, but we want to make sure we put her in office. Again, pro-Black, we had this conversation, being woke because of what she represents as far as our culture, and identifying that there's not enough representation in the county school systems at that level, perhaps zero on the board, if you are aware of that, but zero board representation that looks like us on this audience here. So getting her in that seat will add representation, flavor, and insight that Lowndes County school systems may not have at the table. So pour your support into her and see if there's any way that you can help. That's all I have, brother. Just wanted to give that shout out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you, man. Listen, family, we love y'all. Thank y'all so much. We're getting ready to call it a night. Listen, make sure that you log on. You see it. Go to Instagram at Black and the Bold. Go ahead and log and subscribe and like, so we can go ahead and have conversations. You can get some snippets and other data, on the IG page. If you'd like to send us an email us at theblackandthebold at gmail.com for your comments. And also, if you like to share, if you like to donate, or you like to, $1, $2, or $100, $200, whatever you want to give, whatever it is. Some of y'all ballers out there, Dr. Bell, we need about $250. But anyway, anybody that wants to donate, definitely send that to the Cash App. Is $ the Black and the Bold. Go ahead and send your donations there, so we can definitely make some additional adjustments and some moves. We're getting ready to have some community events. I've got some things in mind. And get ready, gentlemen. Get your soups together. We're about to stand strong and stand firm in our community real soon in solidarity. So be on the lookout for that. But I got to get out of here. I'm going to give you my motivational moment for tonight. It's a very simple one, very quick one. I read a comment that I wanted to share with you all. It says that obstacles are what you see when you take your eye off the goal. Obstacles are what you see when you take your eye off of the goal. There's a book that's written by a man by the name of Mark Victor Hansen. And in this book, primarily, he identified that the number one problem with people getting what they want is their lack of focus. He was saying that those that focus on what they want achieve bigger and better things, get bigger and better outcomes. And those that don't focus, they struggle, and life is difficult for them. But in the book, he found that you'll discover that there are focus strategies that you can utilize and implement in your life to always keep you grounded and always keep your eyes forward. In racing, and many people don't realize that when racing started, they had a problem with keeping the horses in the lane, because if you've never ever ridden a horse in the wild, a horse has a tendency to want to drift which way he wants to go. And they found out that it was hard for them to have a controlled race with horses that had the ability to look around. And somebody came up with the amazing idea and said, if you put blinders on that horse, he can only focus on what's ahead of him. And what I want to encourage you all tonight is, I think it's time for us to put blinders on and begin to really focus on the things that we want to achieve. Life passes you by. I know my son turned 18 in October, and I immediately looked over my life and said, 18 years have just passed me by. And all the things that I've looked at and wanted to do, but I wasn't able to focus on because I didn't have blinders on. I had too much around me. I had too much going on. And I think all of us are going to have that wake-up call where you're going to look back over your life and say, man, 10 years have gone. 5 years have gone. What have I done? What accomplishments have I made? Well, tonight is your night. I just want to motivate you to tell you, I think it's time for you to put your blinders on. Focus on what you want to focus on. Don't take your eye off the goal. Focus in and make that goal your mission. Because the only person that's getting in the way is you. I love you. We'll see y'all next time. Remember, get rid of all the distractions and focus in on what's next in your life. Peace, love, and light. We'll see y'all next time. We out.